My assumption is you're probably going to have bumps in the road. But when I look forward of what needs to be done, obviously the new administration is going to want to build on what's working, fix what isn't working. But hopefully while they're doing that, you're not going to get rid of the good progress we've been making. In the past week, we've seen more than 5 million people get vaccinated. That's great progress compared to where we were a month ago. Now it's about a month late. But if the goal is 100 million vaccinations in 100 days, last week, we just need another 1.5 million per week, and we can be on pace to hit that goal that the new president-elect has. So my hope is that the leaders at HHS and the incoming Biden coronavirus task force have worked together, and there can be a relatively smooth transition, and it won't be as bumpy as we saw when the vice president took over the COVID task force earlier this year, where we basically lost 3 weeks of the fight.
We've seen a lot of headlines about that 100 million vaccinated in the first 100 days. Is it achievable? How ambitious are the plans for the incoming administration?
It's incredibly achievable, and all they have to do is use what we know works. The reality is each week, pharmacies and primary physician offices vaccinate 8.5 million people for seasonal influenza without breaking a sweat. So while I appreciate that they want to set up these mass vaccination sites and get all these people that don't usually do vaccines involved in the fight, the biggest thing they can do is partner with chain and independent pharmacies to make a difference. And if they do that, it's very easily achievable. We can do 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 million vaccines a week without really having to do the heavy lifting we would see with National Guard and FEMA and other people coming in. So my hope is they'll rely on what works and the people that do this regularly in the healthcare system, and maybe not spend as much time and effort focusing on things that require a lot of bandwidth for not a lot of outcome.
Chris, you're a former Deputy Assistant Secretary at Health and Human Services. What exactly logistically is it going to take? You mentioned the work that pharmacies are doing. You mentioned kind of the logistical details around getting vaccinations out there. What exactly is the government needing to do to make sure that we get as many people vaccinated as possible, given what we have in terms of resource constraints?
So what we know is the government needs to focus on ensuring that we increase production of the vaccinations. Hopefully by the end of March, we'll have more than 200 million doses, either the Pfizer or Moderna, with additional companies coming on line in the near term. So it's a matter of just getting it out to the local communities and communicating with state and local leaders about what's coming, when it's coming, so they have more confidence. So they're not going to hold as much back in reserve for that second shot because they have confidence in the supply chain. And that's really been what's lacking, is the communication between the federal and state and local officials. So if they are able to improve that communication, hopefully we can advance. Additionally, one of the things the Biden administration is doing really well is they're saying, look, of course the prioritization would have been ideal and scientists were right to push for that, but it was probably too prescriptive. And instead, anybody over age 65, get them vaccinated. So the pharmacies can literally get vaccine. You show up, you show your ID. If you're over age 65, you get it in your arm. If you're not over age 65, you show your recent pay stub that says you're a teacher, then guess what? You can get a vaccine too. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait. So what we saw were some of these governors, especially New York, being incredibly prescriptive and punitive if you happen to give it to the wrong person. And that's the wrong idea. If I have a choice between giving a vaccine to 100,000 people a day and 0 people slip through the cracks that shouldn't have it, or giving it to 1 million people a day and 100 people that shouldn't have it slip through the cracks, I'm choosing the 1 million people every day a week and twice on Sundays.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.